At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our show, Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw.
Co-host Stephen Shaw. Hello.
Hi. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about the big announcement made by President Trump this week. And from what I understand, they have dumped a fair amount of data that we have yet to be able to, comb through.
Millions of pages to sift through, right?
Yeah, lots of pages.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting, and we're looking forward to that.
Always remember, they're going to be heavily redacted.
Yes, probably so. The Legacy program is the faction in our Pentagon that has been keeping the UFO
phenomenon. Explain that to our audience, Leslie, real quick in a nutshell.
Well, I just was.
it's a group that's basically been there for a long time. That basically they have a vested interest in keeping things undercover, right?
Yes, they've been in place really since Truman, since the 1947 Roswell incident. Just right after that, about a month later, Truman created the Majestic 12, right. And Majestic 12 then created Project Blue Book, and which was ostensibly created to study the UFO phenomenon, but really what they were doing was just covering it up.
The real agenda was to basically spew disinformation, but I think most people know that by now.
Yeah.
It originally was Project Grudge, and then it went to Blue Book, and Hynek was involved. In fact, the funny thing is Hynek at the end was basically saying that, okay, UFOs are real.
Yeah, and a lot of them were chafing under the yoke of being forced to keep this from the public.
Right.
And sometimes when people would chafe enough, it was enough impetus for them to be murdered. We think that there were at least 3 or 4 murders committed to keep keep a lid on this.
Yeah. It's something, of course, that people that have read our book, which is a plug for our book, that we call them cousins, and we call them cousins for very specific reasons.
Yeah, you'll find out when you read it.
Yeah, read our book.
Yes, speaking of the book, it's called Who They Are and What They're Up To. Here,
and
show it off
this
a
is
little
only one part of it. Okay.
Yes, and we've the green screen is making it look weird. Sorry about that. There's some green on the cover.
Soon to be out in the next couple of weeks in the Spanish version.
Yeah, maybe if I put it up against my shirt.
That's a bit better.
No, it's still weird.
Yeah. It's being its 2nd edition.
And going to be in Spanish soon.
Yes, also
and audiobook soon. So we're very excited. And we're also wanted to announce that we're going to be at Contact in the Desert this year.
Oh yeah, we are?
Yeah, we kicked around the idea of maybe not doing it this year, but we just can't pass it up.
Why am I always the last to know? No, not really.
No, he's lying. He gave me
made
permission.
The decision together, yeah.
Yeah, he gave me permission to pay for the it's a $450 for a table for anyone who's wondering. And we ponied up, and we're going to be there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really terrific forum for meeting other abductees, and
if you're experiencers, there's also many experiencers groups which are very, very kind and gentle, but also allow you to be able to listen to people that have stories and experiences that they either can or cannot explain. It's actually very well attended, and I think a lot of people should just go just for that.
Excellent. And tonight, our wonderful guest is going to be another edition with our friend Mike Forrest.
Yes.
What was the name of his book again?
Well, his Instagram is Alien Carvings.
Yes, and they're coming up with some amazing discoveries.
We actually have his book hard copy book that I got from him at it was Contact
in the Desert.
about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's got some amazing pieces in it. So you got to check out his work.
So we'll be checking in with him today and hear all the latest stuff they've been finding.
All the testing done, especially with the manganese patinas.
Yes, they've been doing some new types of testing, further proving that these artifacts have been in the ground.
These are the real deal.
For thousands of years. They're not
Anunnaki.
They're not hoaxes or
that's right.
being made up. And they go a long way to proving the Sitchin's claims that the Anunnaki were in the New World.
That's right.
And I think, poor Sitchin, he died before any of this stuff was being discovered, but there was a bowl that was discovered in Bolivia that had, Bolivia,
right.
It had artifacts. It had ancient Sumerian,
wasn't it proto?
Hieroglyphs and part of it. And then the other part had actually proto-Sumerian hieroglyphs and the cuneiform, the later cuneiform, and also some other, artifacts, markings from the area. So this was proof for Sitchin that the Anunnaki were in the New World. But if he had seen the stuff they're pulling out of Mexico right now, he would have just...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what he would have done, but after he was apoplectic for a while, he'd be thrilled to have seen them.
That's right. So let's introduce our great guest.
All right. We'll be back in just a moment, everyone.
Take care.
Good evening. Are you wondering if the UFO phenomenon is real?
Are you wondering who is flying the UFOs in our skies?
Are you wondering if aliens are really abducting people?
Then you need to read this book.
The book is titled, Who They Are and What They're Up To.
Find out the true identity of the aliens.
Learn a very brief history of the UFO cover-up.
Find out where the aliens are hiding.
Find out why our government is in league with them.
Learn about their bizarre hybrid breeding program.
Find out why their technology is 13,000 years ahead of ours.
The reference section of this book alone is worth the price.
Again, that was Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw.
Now available on Amazon and coming soon in the Spanish and Czech languages.
And soon to be in English and Spanish audiobook.
With a new foreword by fellow author and abductee Karen Wilkinson.
Again, that was Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw, now available on Amazon. And welcome back to our show, everyone. UFOs, Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw.
And I'm co-host Stephen Shaw. Hello.
And our wonderful guest tonight is Mike Forrest. Thank you so much for coming back on again with us, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you prefer Michael? Should I be calling you Michael?
Yeah, however it feels right.
Yeah, I like Michael better. My uncle was always went by Michael. So.
Well, okay, Michael it is then.
It's a better name.
Yeah, it's a good name. Good solid name. English name, So
Michael has been doing and actually putting the money out to confirm and to validate and to help date some of these artifacts coming out of the Tula Hidalgo and the Los Ojos. Is it Ojos area?
Ojuelos, yeah.
Ojuelos. Okay, this is going from Mexico, and some of these pieces are going down into South America, right? Some of these floors you're finding too.
I haven't done a ton of research in South America. We have documented some pieces from Ecuador and Colombia, but mostly I just focus on Mexico because it costs so much time and money to even try to do proper science. And I'm not an institution, so getting all the tests and making it something credible that's worth actually spending the money to go out there and do those tests. That's really something that's just, we found where we had the best credible evidence of the pieces coming out, where we had the closest connection to the actual sites themselves and focused there. But in Peru, there's tons of the pieces that mimic the three-fingered beings, and they look like gray aliens that are documented, not just in the pieces that they find there, but also in the petroglyphs.
And are these parts, some of these pieces are like the walls and the floors that have been found too, that the older you go, the more sophisticated they are?
Yeah. I actually got a chunk of a stucco type floor. And what's really interesting is when I hit it with the black light, it glows green just like the pieces do. And so I could
Wow.
only imagine their purposing behind this. But the fact that they had floors made of this type material, and these floors are also carved with the same, details, and they're very brittle and they just crumble apart. But yeah, nonetheless, we have a piece from Tula about this big that's going to be studied. It's got a lot of really good patina, as well as like a red paint on it.
And whereabouts, just for our audience, whereabouts is Tula for people who are on the map?
It's fairly close to Mexico City. It would be like north of Mexico City.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And so, obviously, a big thing that's come out that you've been doing has been the stuff about the manganese patina. And,
yes, we want to hear all about that.
And like if that helps with the dating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It does. It's something that someone could use a magnifying glass and look at themselves, which I think is really important. You don't need expensive carbon dates or $1 million labs to see this type of patina. And when it's studied, you can see that it's actually attached and built off of the stone itself. It's not just, black dirt smashed into a crevice or something. This is actually a mineral type reaction that occurs over a long period of time after being in the ground. Like the water will sit in certain places and create this type of a reaction.
And we're talking thousands of years it takes to for this to accumulate.
At least
correct?
500. I mean, it depends on the area and the amount of rain and stuff, but it's usually pretty indicative at 1,000 or more years. Yeah.
But you've also found too what calcite or like calcium carbonate on some of these too, the ones that show almost like a stalactite type of formation too.
A lot of pieces are really high in calcite, depending whether they're, there's some materials that we find that are natural out of the earth, and then there's some materials that we find that are made, like the different walls and floors, and even some of these pieces, like for instance, I can show you this whistle here. This whistle, it looks like a stone, but it was actually made or sculpted wet, like a clay. And so this actually tests, we had GIA test this stone, and it comes back as calcite. So it's like a blue calcite, but it's, they're able to form it into whistles and stuff. This thing is a playable whistle. I'd play it, but the noise cancellation on my headphones won't allow you guys to hear it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. On one of the ones you're doing with Joshua, when you had your box and you're showing the two colored skull that is also like a whistle or a flute, the one that's like green and whitish on one side. Yep. And it looks like it was like, it looks like it was almost like melded together or something. It was so perfectly, symmetrical. And it was beautiful. I remember hearing
it plays beautifully after thousands of years. It still plays.
It really
lovely.
does. You can see here, this is like a piece of crystal that was made. It's this dome, but over here you can see that the orange stone that a lot of these pieces from Tula are made out of, they actually used to patch this crystal to make it a smooth dome. But I think that's really an interesting thing that they clearly used it to fix rocks and stuff like that as well, like a binder almost.
And how deep I know it comes from different levels, but I know some of these findings are going like 10, 20 feet deep that you're finding.
I think 20 is about the max depth. That's a couple ladders to get out of there. And anything more than that, the cave-in risk is really high. Already at that depth, the cave-in risk is extremely high. The guys were really nervous working in that cave and clearing it out. But there was a cave that opened up at the 16-foot level. And it had petroglyphs all over it on the inside and the outside. Wow. And so it's just, I think right now the limitation's just the safety and overall logistics. To clear out that much dirt out of those caves took them months, and for just a few pieces that were inside, it was more of a passion project than a work project,
Have there been any theories on, let's say, why they were stored that way, or is it just because it's been so much time has passed?
Yeah, there's a lot of different theories, because sometimes we find these built up like walls or doors where they're completely barricaded in there, like someone deliberately put them in there and created a door or something in between there. But then there's other pieces that are just in the ground, scattered all over the place. There's pieces that are inside of caves, and then inside the caves, there's pieces buried inside of there. The type of rock and dirt that they're finding these pieces in is very loose, and it's not like it's been there forever. I wouldn't call it prehistoric dirt. At some point or another, this land got buried. And another place that's similar to this is Göbekli Tepe over there, and it's kind of dating in the similar region where they don't know, but they know it was deliberately buried, and it's quite the site.
Right.
So to do this is just for what purpose? And that's where we're kind of coming into. There are a lot of theories whether it was the Anunnaki that it was the Agigi species that was living at that time, and then they rebelled against the Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki created a new species and moved on from them and buried their old civilizations, maybe caused certain sorts of resets or something. I mean, that's kind of the hypothesis, just because the descriptions in like the Enuma Elish and the Atra Hasis really resemble a lot of this stuff well, and we do find a lot of Anunnaki evidence in the pieces themselves.
Yes, they're just covered in Anunnaki images, as well as the hieroglyphics look more proto-Sumerian to me than they do Egyptian. But I'm not a translator of these ancient languages. Have you made any headway with actual translations of the hieroglyphs?
Some, yes. There's some pieces that actually resemble proto-Sinaitic or proto-cuneiform that really can be looked at. And some of the symbols are obvious, like this means that in this and this language. So it's probably that here too. However, the way it's all just kind of put on there is really bizarre. And it mimics kind of what they described before the fall of the Tower of Babel, where there was this one language that was just superior and what everybody used on the planet. And I think that might be what we see, or what we see the fragments of, or the initial fragments of, because there's also talk of Enki and Enlil giving the humans different languages to confuse each other and changing certain parts of the language for this group instead of this group, so they could try to see where the corruption was coming from. And, if someone was trying to, because they were always fighting.
Yes.
Yes. I think we talked about this. One of the cool books I've been reading is *Sapiens* by Harari, and it's amazing. It gets back to that 300,000 year demarcation mark. He talks about it, where it looks like that again. Homo sapien developed down in the Abzu, which was South Africa, the Mozambique area of today. That's where we were. Current Homo sapiens came from Homo sapien, and it was 300,000 years ago that it appears that we first started to be able to control the use of fire and be able to either burn the plains or move, control where animals were moving, that kind of stuff. And of course, if you're looking for a workforce, a Homo sapien would make a great candidate.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I always said you can't build a pyramid without a blueprint, and you have to have an intelligent workforce, at least intelligent enough. You can't do it all by telepathy.
That can read and speak.
You can't do it by telepathy. You have to have a plan, and
just
you have to have the workforce.
Yeah, just like all the chambers that are down in Egypt underneath the ground that torches couldn't get to, and that there's no soot on the ceilings, but yet all these tunnels are completely laced with these symbols and things. How they did this and who did this, I think is really
it was the Baghdad battery.
Well, I think that's one theory. Yeah.
Could
and they had light bulbs, so it looks like I mean.
Yeah.
What is that? There's a famous
the Dendroba bulb.
The Dendara,
Dendara.
That's it, where it shows the bulb and the little bat. It looks like the Baghdad batteries off to the side. It definitely the same shape, and
citric acid works well too for that.
Galvanic reactions.
We think they had electricity.
Even just if they were making geopolymers and they were to combine carbon and iron together inside of there, which is something that we find prevalent in the orange stone. There's actually conductivity that is brought out there by about 0.2 volts.
No kidding.
That's enough to do quite a bit,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just because we don't, we've lost technology. Let's say, for instance, there was I've been saying this about Pumapunku for years now, because I did a lot of concrete work when I was younger, a lot when I was a builder. And when I looked at those H blocks, I said, these things were poured. I'm sorry, these things were poured. And now you got German scientists and engineers saying, no, these were poured. They're too uniform.
They're just perfectly. It's like they popped out of a mold, the same mold, again and again.
Yeah.
That's the real question is like, if they were such masters of this, where's all the molds at, and why don't we see any traces of it? You don't
see the tools, you don't see the molds. Yeah. Where do they take it?
And in ancient Egypt, there's I've forgotten his name. I'm getting worse with names as I get older, I'm afraid. But there's this one archaeologist who was studying small things. He didn't want to study the big Egypt, the pyramids and the temples and the giant mausoleums and stuff. What he wanted to study were the small items. Right. And he made an enormous catalog of items that appear to have lathe marks, like machine grinding marks on them. Yep. And which with hard enough stones where it would require diamonds, but not a single diamond or diamond flake has been found in Egypt, in this region at all. There's whatever tools they had, they brought them, used them, and took them with them, apparently, because they didn't leave them behind. That's for sure.
Not like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen has a bad habit of leaving his tools where he finished the last project.
Yeah.
And he'll ask me, he says, "Where's my hammer?" And I go, "Well, you last used it at so and such." And sure enough, it's sitting right there.
Yeah. Glue an air tag on it.
Yeah, right.
Sorry to tease you, honey.
No,
it's true. Yeah, when it's true, it's true.
It happens. Yeah.
I'm just grateful he did the project. I mean, he fixed the thing I needed fixed. Yeah,
I fixed a lot of things.
That's the effort that counts.
And
that was my profession for years.
Yep.
I was a cabinet maker, and I was in the military as the CB. So that's what I did. I made things and I fixed things. That's what I did.
Yeah, my hero. So I also wanted to talk about the fantastic discoveries that have been made in South Africa and under the Giza Plateau, where this under the Giza Plateau, this one Scottish and Italian scientists, they're working together.
Yeah.
They came up with a way of using satellite technology to combined with their ground penetrating radar to go even further down. They're able to go
satellite aperture radar.
1.6 miles or something like that.
It's a 0.62, which is
0.62 miles,
which is a kilometer. Yes.
Yep.
And using the satellite, and I'm not sure what technology exactly.
The SARS type of thing.
SARS. They're calling it SARS.
It's aperture radar.
Aperture radar. Okay.
Is it? Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
At first it seemed hard to believe, but I really looked into this technology. There was people that I really trusted for information that said it was all a hoax, and when it first came out, but some of those people have backtracked now and are saying, no, I mean, maybe the depth is maybe inaccurate, but there's definitely something there and into this, and that this technology works. Clearly they've used it all over the place and show just how well it works too. And what's interesting is there's a researcher, Klaus Dona, who has done a lot of research down in Mexico, and he came out with a lot of the stuff down there in Ecuador and things that resemble what we're finding in Mexico as well. And he actually scanned Jalisco with this satellite aperture radar. Like, you can rent the ability to do this from these satellites and go and do this.
Really?
Yeah, and he won't say specifically, or at least I haven't heard, but nonetheless, that I know that there was stuff found that he's very curious about.
Mm-hmm. Satellite aperture radar. Okay, that's good to know.
Definitely,
and it will penetrate down fairly deep and reliably with further testing that's been done. That's good to know, because there's been talk about, for years or decades, that there is like the complex beneath the Giza Plateau is like 10 times bigger than what's on the top. It's like the iceberg effect.
It is now. Yeah, now we know it is. Yeah. This infrastructure is, the first numbers I saw coming out were the 10 times the volume of the pyramids themselves on the surface. So this is enormous. And then the Abzu is, in ancient Sumerian tablets, the Abzu was called the place of the waters. And it was the kingdom of Enki down in South Africa.
Right.
And apparently, satellite imagery has discovered this kingdom really existed. They were able to trace a wall around the area, and it's enormous. Again, it's enormous.
Like much bigger than, greater Los Angeles with hundreds of miles of roads. Michael Tellinger and Richard Wade and a couple others have been instrumental in doing that. And also the 2,000 mines they have found in that area over the past 2 or 3 decades. And these mines go down, they're really deep. A lot of these mines are really deep, and they're coming back at 200 to 212,000 years ago.
They're actually able to test carbon date the detritus at the bottom of these mines.
Okay. And so it's all now they can actually see the outline. Now we can actually see the outline of Enki's kingdom. And I think what Sitchin said.
And I think this means it's over, except for the shouting kind of scenario, that the Anunnaki are now proven.
Yeah, they're right about there. Yeah.
These mines don't just, like I've said this before in our podcast, they don't just predate modern mining techniques. They predate modern man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Modern man didn't exist until about 150,000
Yeah, Homo
years ago.
sapien did not exist 200,000.
So who the heck is on our planet digging 200,000-year-old mines 200,000 years ago?
Yeah. Looking for gold.
Ooh,
looking for gold. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the only answer is, I say, let's go with the people who are claiming to be aliens, who are claiming this. And this isn't a claim they just made over, say, 100-year period. This claim has stood the test of time for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So either this is a hoax that they perpetrated for thousands of years, or the Anunnaki really were here, really were aliens, and really were in charge.
And uplifted humanity.
Too.
That's the part that's scary, see? So I see depictions of the Anunnaki on these pieces. They're not uplifting humanity. They're actually, and we know this as a fact, that the Igigi were a slave species to the Anunnaki. They dug the ditches and built the roads.
We don't doubt that.
Right. So to say that that they created us to do the same, I think would probably be a fair assumption, that we were the replacement for the Igigi. And like you said earlier, what a perfect being to create all this stuff other than Homo sapien. I mean, it's almost like they tried through many, many different species over the years to get to us as the dumbest, smartest thing that they could possibly come up with.
Yeah,
that's right. They just had to they had to turn on the gene sequence so that we could actually talk and actually understand language and do symbols. We had to get symbolically smart, because, like I say, you can't build a pyramid without a blueprint. That means you have to understand symbols.
And from Homo erectus to Homo sapien this is the 300,000-year mark, where from Homo erectus to Homo sapien is an enormous improvement to the model, so to speak, with the neocortex, the ability to speak, the ability to imagine.
Yeah, imagination was one of the big things. Yes, symbolically, symbolically.
And you'd think that it would take 2 million years, before you'd go from here to here, but this happened in relatively short amount of time, like 50,000 years, and we think this is a sign that that Homo erectus was uplifted in Homo sapien.
I think we were tampered with. It looks like.
In that respect, yes, 100% uplifted in the tampering with. Yeah. As far as whether it was for good intention or for another slavery type intention, there's pieces
definitely
like
slavery.
This. It's got Saturn with the genetics and this being, holding up. Yeah. Wow, I don't So
they didn't do it for our benefit. Let me put it that way. They did it for their own projects, their own needs. They need that gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we think anyway.
That's what Sitchin says too, and I mean, what a lot of the texts give pride to, for sure. Yeah. I
would argue that we can't recreate the Great Pyramid today. We can do it, maybe piece it together, but not without crane marks, and none of these stones exhibit crane marks.
I would go as far. Sorry.
So we can build it. We know we maybe could build it, but we couldn't build it the same way that it was built. And I put this, the Great Pyramid is so fantastic, so amazing a structure. I can't imagine anybody but the chief Anunnaki engineer, Enki, is the one who could have built it, and the infrastructure below.
The infrastructure below, the foundation itself that it sits on, all these things in the middle of the desert at that time period to create that type of tolerance with those type of precise measurements across thousands and thousands of feet. Yeah, I mean, I don't think humans possess the ability. Not one genius like Tesla or Einstein has ever been able to fathom a proper way of doing this. Even with AI, which is technically quite a bit smarter than us per capita, can't fathom truly how to do it. So that's pretty insane. I mean,
they keep on saying that it is the most perfect machine ever built on the planet. I mean, on the cardinal points to where, like in Hancock's book, The Fingerprints of the Gods, he talks about how, like, where it's situated in, like, the exact center of the total landmass of the Earth. There are all these things, all these calculations, these astronomical calculations and mathematical calculations
that are built into
the pyramid. And some of the stone inside the pyramid is hardness level of carborundum on the Mohs scale. It's 9, and these things got filigree carvings on them, either done by laser or done by high pressure water, and
that's a good possibility.
And I'm so sick of Egyptology attributing these pyramids to a culture that they were copper tool users. They weren't even Bronze Age people. And
Khufu,
and right, all for this supposedly as a tomb for this pharaoh that was supposed to be constructed in 20 years. There's 2.3 million blocks. In order to make the pyramid in 20 years, you have to put one in place something like every 14 minutes.
Because there's also the rainy season that was up, you had to count for too at the time.
And this is working through the night and the day and the hot season and the rainy season,
It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
It is ludicrous.
It is
100%.
absurd.
Yeah.
And I thought the Great Pyramid was pretty impressive, and now it's a pimple on top of the infrastructure.
How deep it goes, the catacombs.
10 times bigger under there.
Yeah.
And it looks like it looks like the SARS data is coming back, making it look like there's coils going around these big column kind of structures.
Cylinder shape.
Which to me reminds me of the infrastructure of a power plant.
Or a battery storage or something,
Electrolysis of some form. There's a lot of water that runs underneath the pyramids. So there's a book called, obviously Christopher Dunn's book is really good here as well, but there's also one called the Giza, the Giza Industrial Complex by J.J. Hurtak. And he goes
read that one.
Quite deep into this as well, and shows a lot of those things where there's tool marks everywhere on this thing that just don't quite add up to what they say is like a tomb. It just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, they were never tombs.
Yeah, we know. Anybody really knows. You wouldn't say eat at Joe's if you want to be buried with all your stuff, and cover it with limestone.
Still a lot of people saying it is, though. It's crazy the redundancy of this topic and how much it's pushed back upon when there's logic involved here.
I know. It's
and we can all lay it at the foot of Weiss, Colonel Weiss. This guy that forged a cartouche inside the Great Pyramid.
Not even well either.
Yeah. Badly.
Well, he was given $2 million to come back with, to prove that it was a tomb, and he had to do something.
He wanted to come back. He had backers, expensive backers.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
He was promising that he would come back with gold and all kinds of
riches,
artifacts and whatever. And his first notes say that the pyramid was completely empty of all. All hieroglyphics, and absolutely no item was inside the pyramid at all. And according to the Sumerian texts, there's a reason for this. They actually, at one point, they used the Great Pyramid as a prison for one of the other Anunnaki. And so they took all of and they emptied it of all of its machinery and just threw it out in the desert. and repurposed it as a prison.
Wow.
Well,
that was supposed to be Marduk, who was being punished for killing the
Tiamat.
husband of Inanna.
Right. So, Michael,
yeah.
you have a new book, or you have new testing coming out, right? As far as further testing on some of these, we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah. We have we found some pieces that obviously are made of this geopolymer. So we started last year testing this and finding out, this is a manufactured substance, not something that is made by the earth. And we got that understood from pieces that we know and trust. And so right now we're comparing, because there's pieces out there made of a similar orange material that don't look right, that have really sloppy drawings and really, poor things that just don't seem right. So we're analyzing now glues and this type of stone. We're finding that there's things inside of the original, like arsenic and other contaminants that are not found in the new one. That this old stone is actually a crystalline geopolymer. So it's like formulated crystals together, whereas the new stuff's more like a powder or a plaster type substance. And so on these pieces, we've been doing a lot of testing, because there's clearly on the fakes a hydrochloric acid that they're dipping them in to get this orange color for rapid oxidation. And we're able to find that pollution on the surface, whereas the originals don't. So basically, I've just been going back and forth and doing a lot of comparison and measuring. Now that we have pieces that we're confident about on both sides of the spectrum, now it's time to get dirty with that and really compare them. We also have a new dating process that actually can date because it's a manufactured stone, it has an organic binder inside of it. And we did a bunch of carbon dates last year. They came back at like 37 to 45,000 years old. This isn't correct.
Oh, Nelly, I thought the eldest was like 30,000 years old.
Well, let me explain why they came back that way. So we sent them to the lab. The lab tested them for the carbon inside. What they weren't aware of is that there was organic carbon and non-organic carbon together inside of there because of the dead carbon that's found inside of limestone. So with the new calibration, so like we had a piece from Abuelos that the glue dated like 8,800 years, but the material itself came back at 38,000 or something. And so we retested it with the new calibration, knowing that it's organic carbon we're testing for, came back with the same dates.
Okay.
Son of a gun.
That's really important, seeing that is almost impossible to fake, because you can't, to get these dates to be the same out of two different substrates like that is really, really impressive in my opinion. And we've also tested things like we have a canopic jar. I can show you here actually.
Wow.
It just happens to be sitting here, but this jar stinks really bad on the inside, and there's organic material in there that we were able to scrape and get carbon dated as well. And that jar was found sealed and is documented being found out of Tula. So we tested that. It was like 19,280 years old.
Wow.
To me, that's probably the best carbon date that we have in terms of accuracy, because glues and geopolymer, stuff like that, not necessarily as accurate. They can have, pollutions and stuff like that. But as far as this being such an organic material that we looked at with the FTIR scanning, it's clear as day that that's organic material, and they're
Was that from a jar where they mummified an organ?
Likely had a liver or some sort of organ in there. A
funerary jar in Mexico.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So this that we showed you at the beginning, or maybe before actually we started recording, this here with the alien face, this is obviously a geopolymer, right? It feels like it. To me, it does.
It's got kind of a soapy feel to it.
Yeah, it's got a soapy, and it's kind of heavy. And it's got the alien faces, and it's got the UFO in the background.
And Michael says this kind of scar in the middle. That's where it's in the areas where the thing has been broken, that you're getting this manganese patina forming, right?
Yeah, the water will collect there and settle, and because it's exposed, like that white on the surface is actually, it looks really polished, but it's not polished. You can hold that and see that this is really almost like a glaze, and so or an enamel in this case is, I believe, the more scientific name for it. But it's like a glaze in that respect, but it's not fired. It's put on and hardens on there like that, and that's how they're able to carve on the surface of that rough stone and also protect the stone. That enamel is extremely protective against against heat and damage and corrosiveness. So I think that's where we're at. And then when it gets damaged, that's where it'll open up into that more raw geopolymer, and that's where the stuff really sticks to the manganese and other patina.
So what I just showed you, you're like a ballpark guess. How old do you say that piece comparatively might be?
Well, he told us like it was 9,000 like last time, right?
8 to 20,000 years is probably a fairly good guesstimation in terms of when this culture survived. For sure, it could go older. I have a book that we tested organic resin on the ring that was glued together, and that came back in the 38,000 year range as well. And we did have that tested to verify that it was just organic carbon in there. But that doesn't mean that they didn't take copal resin 20,000 years ago out of the ground that was petrified, melt it down, and use that for their glue. Therefore, now we're seeing this older date than the actual civilization itself.
So this resin that you're finding, let's say the fake resins versus the real, like more calcite based, I guess you've been able to, with a mass spectrometer and being able to break it down as far as like the component parts. Have you been able to analyze the component parts?
Yeah, we use a scanning electron microscope with a electron displacement scan that breaks down the, we've done cross sections of the internal structures as well as the surface itself to analyze the patina, and that's where we find the manganese and stuff like that. But yeah, we've absolutely analyzed this pretty heavily. We have a whole day scheduled that's going to be doing a lot of the comparisons and measuring. We've just been preparing our samples and really trying to make sure that we have good chain of custody on the pieces that we're testing and make sure that we can just try to create as solid of a foundation as possible, because clearly someone is making fakes, and these fakes that are being made are at a very high level. When I wrote my book, Anunnaki America, the elder Toltec actually testified that the cartel was being paid by UNESCO to take care of this situation and to keep it a secret by flooding the market with fakes. This was 3.5, 4 years ago. And now I'm starting to see the real light in his statements here that this could be a very true thing. And so when we did question some of the people on this, they all say, oh, well, that piece I didn't get from, I didn't pull it out myself. I got it from my friend. He's usually trustworthy, stuff like that. Yeah. But never documented, and also very, very suspicious, because they won't ever tell us who this friend is. And we've sent, $250,000 to $500,000 to certain families down there for pieces over the year, and they still are in dire need of money the next day. So it really is concerning to me at this point now that there's cartel involvement at the level that they might be being blackmailed or suppressed to where they have to do this and they have to sell fakes. Otherwise, they're going to get in trouble for doing what they're doing, which should be very illegal in the first place. But somehow these guys just keep getting away with these massive discoveries, and the authorities just, well, it's crazy.
All throughout history, there have been people that have been like being able to fake Da Vinci's and like this. Then exactly. There's always been a need and a market for. Listen, I've got a Da Vinci, or I've got a Michelangelo, or I've got a real piece from Tula Hidalgo. But it's no. But we are so clever at doing this stuff, and it's so annoying.
This is actually more like though a part of the whole UFO cover-up thing. It sounds like more like, well, we don't want the truth to be known, so how do we diffuse the situation? And in this case, there's all you can discredit something so easily just by making these fakes.
Right, yeah. Because once you discredit one, then everybody then says, okay, a lot of people say that.
Oh, they must all be fakes.
They must all be fake. It must be just a big hoax.
Something,
That's what happened with the Nazca mummies.
10% of Americans still believe the Earth is flat. 12% of Americans still believe that the moon landing was fake.
Yeah.
Well, we just built the Saturn V rockets just for fun.
Yeah, and I looked it up. Built
15.
Yeah, the Saturn V rocket. You're probably too young to remember them as we do.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
But it was at the time, and it held the record for being the largest machine ever made by man until the Hadron Collider beat it out in 2000.
Yeah.
And we built 15 Saturn V.
And launched 13
rockets, and we launched 13 of them. One of which was to put the Skylab in space.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And most of the rest of the launches were for the Apollo program.
Apollo program, yeah.
But the idea that we would create this colossal rocket.
We did it as a goof. We did it as a
And
goof.
just to send an empty capsule up into the orbit, it's just.
You know what I think happened? I used to think really, I think really highly of Stanley Kubrick, and there's a famous admission from him that he filmed the moon landing before he passed away, and a lot of people roll their eyes at that, blah blah blah, because they know the truth that we built this stuff, and they've seen enough evidence to know that we made this mission, right? But what we filmed on that moon and what we were able to disclose to the public versus what those astronauts might have actually seen might have required Kubrick to film a fake moon landing.
Yeah,
so
they might have had to make some B-roll to cover up some of the alien
B-roll.
activity.
And that's why I think people debate this topic, because there are lies involved with the truth here, and that makes people feel uneasy inside.
Oh, constantly. We can't trust NASA. We can't trust them to tell us about Three Eye Atlas. We
Never
can't trust them.
answer.
Yeah, we call them never a straight answer at our house.
Yeah, national security for everything.
Yeah, if you're going to be training for anything on the Earth, or like you say, maybe for going to Mars or whatever, you have to simulate as much as possible for the astronauts that are going to be there. You got to simulate what they're going to be going through. So yeah, you're going to be filming stuff, and you're going to be
Mars
locations.
NASA loves filming when they're testing stuff.
Oh yeah, sure. You got to test it and test it again.
What's it called they're testing it? Running scenarios.
Simulation.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, they're famous for simulations and filming them, So I think some of this B-roll that they're talking about has to do with that. And but of course we really did go to the moon. and that it's funny because I'm very proud of NASA in a lot of ways too. I was thrilled to watch us land on the moon. I was 10 years old, sitting in a living room with my grandfather. And he was born in 1900 and died in 75. So he was alive before the light bulb and died after we had touched down on the moon. He was able to see the entire he was ringside for the entire industrial revolution.
Yeah. And the World War, everything. I mean, that's a big the Depression. I mean, you definitely see a lot going through that window of time.
Indeed.
Oh, just to let you know too, Michael, our cousins, as we call them, are still bugging me. They did it. They did it very specifically this past December the 1st, which happens to be the waxing gibbous moon, which it seems to be like I get in my astral body watching waxing gibbous moon. December the 1st would have been my younger brother's birthday, okay? But I wasn't thinking about that. But I was approached at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was in bed, okay? And I was in my astral body, this hovering above body, and I was in this room with a bunch of people, and these two big guys, one was about 6'6", and another one was a little bit shorter, two big white guys. They came, and one of them grabbed me and pushed me up against the wall by my throat, and my chest area, and my whole body then just went numb. It was like they hit me with a beam, and then they started examining me. And at this point, I hadn't had a touch of alcohol for 3 months. Okay, so anyways, there was no alcohol or anything like that involved. And this has been going on my whole life, right? So they examined me for a while. And then they let me go, and then I went on talking to the people in the room, or mingling. And then they came back to me again. They pushed me up against the wall. Again. Same thing. And then I was able to talk. I said, what do you want? Who are you? And I was able to get some answers out of the smaller guy, but they were looking in my eyes, looking in my mouth, like checking me out. Just like they're examining me. This is not the first time this has happened. Last time they were zapping my brain. They had me on a table zapping my brain, saying, this guy knows too much. I can see my brain on the screen and feeling the zap. And so this is still going on, for me today. I mean, that our cousins have not finished with me. Okay. And like I say, I've had this happen to me so many times in my life. It's like, getting punched in the face one time, you really remember that, right? Okay, but if you've been punched in the face 1,000 times, 1,001, it's like, okay, it's just another punch. So I didn't wake up telling Leslie, like, oh my God, I'm going insane. No, because it's just happened so many times to me, like the knocking behind my head, going to sleep. The last time was really funny, actually. first time this ever happened. I was not asleep, but I was just, relaxing in bed. And then it was
shaving a haircut.
Shaving a haircut, 2 bits. What the heck was that about? It's clear as day, right behind my head on the wall. It's normally just like wake up. We want
1,
to
2,
talk
3.
to you.
Yeah.
It's normally that. Then the other night I had a car crash through the bedroom door. I was like hovering in the astral body, and it was just like a car just crashed right through the wall. Wow. And if I had been in my regular physical body, I would say, oh my God, somebody just crashed through, which would be impossible because we have a house between us and a backyard. So, but yeah, it's just like I'm still getting all this stuff going on with me. This has not stopped.
I wanted to ask Michael, if you don't mind me interrupting,
sure.
my love, but I wanted to ask him specifically about alien abduction and the alien breeding program. I found, as going through all your photos on your website and checking out the Instagram things I've been seeing, I'm seeing a lot of what look like gray aliens having sex with regular humans who then give birth to like a hybrid. And I've seen this a fair amount of times in your carvings. Are you getting any meaning as to this? What's going on in the artwork?
I think there's ancient stories like Genesis where you have the angels that come down, or the sons of God is what they're called in the Bible, and they come down and have their way with the woman of man. And
the Watchers, from Enoch.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the Watchers here are possibly some of these more advanced gray-looking aliens, and then they have hybridized beings that maybe are more like landwalker type, in the dimension that we're in type. I don't know. I mean, some of them seem to be floating around like genies, and others seem to be with bipedal type, feet and legs and things. So it's really interesting to see the amount of hybridization. However, down in Nazca, there's the stories about hybridization and cloning and things there. There's also the same in Guerrero, that's where they did experimentation for thousands of years, creating different beings. And that's why we see all these different elongated skulls, why some people would do cranial binding to appease their gods. I mean, this all stems from this culture that really existed. That's why these people, they try to say all the Paracas skulls are just cranial binding, but where did the cranial binding come from, and why they felt so passionate about it? Obviously not all the Paracas skulls are like that. We've proven that, I think, now, at least in logic, but
they're missing the sagittal suture, are they not?
Yeah,
some of them are.
And some of them's mandibles are so much larger and just impossible to get with cranial binding for sure. But still, there was a lot of this cranial binding. So this this elongated species was definitely respected or revered as gods at one point or another. We would definitely fall into the Watchers.
Yeah, we mimic exactly what we see. We did it for a reason, because we saw it and we associated that with power or intelligence or something, or a higher class. Now, I've been waiting to ask you on anything that you've seen or other people have seen. Have you seen any like carvings that kind of like would loosely equate to like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch modern day? Nothing like that.
I was just going to ask that question. He's so psychic. He pulls stuff out of my brain all the time.
Cyclops. I've seen depictions of a one-eyed Cyclops in many cases.
Interesting.
We've definitely seen a lot of hybrid beings, like talked about in the Sumerian, with the scorpion with the man head, and the Lamassu and centaur. All that type of stuff is found on these pieces. So the mythology or the hybridization, I guess, of that, the griffin, the manticore, all that type of stuff we found depictions of.
I think they're still doing it as far as, the DNA on Bigfoot has come back from the Sasquatch Genome Project submitted 111 samples and got a genetic profile, a stable genetic profile for Bigfoot off these samples. Wow. And they submitted it to the Zoological Society. the International Zoological
International
Society,
World,
and they accepted it. And now it has a Latin name. Bigfoot is officially Homo sapiens cognatus.
Huh.
And
because the mitochondrial DNA comes back as human,
yes,
but the nuclear DNA
is an unknown
is
primate,
undefined. They don't know what it is.
And we think that our cousins are also creating Bigfoot. We think they do this. The proof that it's an ape and a woman. The DNA fusion between an ape and a woman. It can't be from sex, right? So it has to be genetic engineering.
Yeah.
And we think that, maybe they genetically engineered them in the beginning, but now they're a viable race of animals that can breed with one another.
Well, they're actually very...
And I shouldn't call them animals.
Yeah, you're right. They're a stable breed. They can breed stably. They're frequently seen with UFOs.
Right.
Yeah.
They have the power. We've had... what's his name? Bennett Tanton, who's been in the military, 2 different branches, and the last time he was in, it was Alaska.
He was in you're thinking of the second incident, but his third incident, he was in upstate New York, and he had 2 cameras phone cameras ready to record this Sasquatch. He kind of funneled it into coming through the gate area because the Sasquatch was coming back night after night, so he made it where it had to come through this one gate, and he was poised, ready for it to shoot it, and with these cameras, and then sure enough, it's in the doorway of this gate, and first one camera drains of all battery power, and then the second one drains of all battery power. So, and we've heard this so many times. Bigfoot is armed with a device that drains the energy out of batteries.
Out of digital, not analog.
So we're not talking about an animal here. That's just, and that's why they're seen everywhere, but they're not. There's no viable breeding population in those places.
At least here on Earth, but a lot of people speculate that the Sasquatch could be an interdimensional species that's highly evolved spiritually, and if that's the case, we find portals and we find all these type of things in this artwork. The Ajiji, if they were, in the Ultra Hasis, it talks about how they became too strong and rebelled against the Anunnaki. Well, you got to think, okay, how are you going to rebel against the Anunnaki? Are you going to be using missiles and nukes like we have today? Or did they rebel spiritually with hexes and spells and that sort of stuff, which could be actually a threat to these spiritual type beings or these light body type beings? The Anunnaki were known as the glowing ones or the shining ones. And I think that some of this type of stuff may still occur off planet, but I don't think it's prohibited here anymore.
I read Sitchin's description of the Anunnaki, the tablets for the rebellion. Apparently, the Homo sapien was being utilized for mining down at the Abzu, and these 200,000-year-old mines, this location. And Enlil, the chief, Anunnaki, came down to inspect the mines. And while he was staying there in his particular palace or whatever, all of the miners came up from the bowels of the mines and surrounded his palace and demanded that he alleviate this horrible burden of this mining work on them. He said, they said, essentially, we're dying. It's killing us. And Enlil was about ready to have them all put to death for this rebellion, but Enki and the other 10 Anunnaki as the ruling pantheon, they agreed with the workers. They said actually the work is too onerous and it is killing them, and this is unfair. And that's when Enki put forth the proposal with his sister's help, Ninhursag, to create the Adamu, they called him.
The Adamic race.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was actually like when he was doing an inspection of the mines that this rebellion took place, and it was a physical rebellion.
I think that yeah, you're right. But I mean, how does man with modern weapons try to stand up to Enlil? I mean, surround it with what? But I mean, this is a god or a godlike being that was clearly very, very powerful. A storm god is what they call them. So to stand up to that, I mean, the text might not go into great detail of exactly how they were capable of doing so. It's interesting though, because of what you said with Ninhursag and Enki and how they went to create the Adamic species. There's the talk of the Adamu and the other species that were created prior. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing the remnants of, especially what the stories that are passed down verbally or orally through these tribes. They talk about these lands being utilized for this type of genetic research. And I think that could be what eventually led to us after that rebellion.
Right, I agree, and also too, we talk about Nibiru and that kind of thing. Now we actually know, because of our advancements in like the James Webb Telescope and other telescopes, that we know because of the gravitational effects on like planets like Neptune and Uranus, that we know that there is a brown dwarf somewhere out towards the Oort cloud, which
and
is
it's been
part
officially discovered.
Yeah, so. Which is part. See, people think that, talk about interstellar space. Well, interstellar space starts at 100 astronomical units, which is about 10 billion miles, which is about 2.5 times Pluto, roughly, whatever.
So the solar system is much larger than people realize.
Yeah, the Oort cloud is still part of our solar system, and that goes to 100,000 astronomical units away. And so when you're talking about, 3i Atlas coming from the Oort cloud is part of our solar system. It is outside of interstellar space, but it's still part of our solar system.
And if Nibiru does exist, the Sumerian tablets talk about how it was supposed to be orbiting a brown dwarf in the direction of Orion, a brown dwarf that's part of our solar system.
Right.
And in 1986, the IRIS telescope discovered a brown dwarf in this direction. It actually has been confirmed. And the James Webb telescope has also discovered a brown dwarf.
It's one of the telescopes, right? Like James Webb, yes.
It has to be an infrared telescope to come up with a brown dwarf, because they're proto-stars. They don't shine like regular stars.
It's one of maybe a few, too.
Yeah.
So there's not just one.
So just the brown dwarfs alone would be probably enough to cause the perturbations in the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. But I'm 50-50 on whether Nibiru is really coming back. The whole Anunnaki thing, it could have been our cousins just playing gods too, I thought, except that in the genome of mankind at the 300,000 years ago, our genome is actually showing a CRISPR type edit on it.
Yeah, the chromosome, the Y, is it the Y chromosome edit you're talking about?
What is it against here?
Oh, there's a chromosome. There's a edit that's basically like the turning on and off is basically like, either a 1 or a 0. It's in the area of the Broca's brain. At least, what's his name? Michael, not Michael. God. It was like at Alien Con like 3 years ago, did a whole seminar on this. It was one of the guys was on Ancient Aliens. He's on there all the time.
Michael Sterry.
Like again at the 300,000 year mark, that looks like we had the ability to actually
do CRISPR editing.
Yeah, there was CRISPR editing job done on the neocortex. Kind of a cut and paste that was done. It's interesting, all this stuff, like the genetic bottleneck that happened at about the 13,000 year old mark when the comet hit the Earth, the Uccello Horizon comet that was 100 kilometers in diameter. Yeah,
the Younger Dryas
comet. I get these confused myself. So
I wonder if it was the comet and the resulting tsunami and flood, which maybe buried your artifacts.
Could very well be. I've often thought that too, or at least had a great disturbance to interrupt that religion or that region at that time. I mean, we see so much in North America. We also have the Grand Canyon with Kincaid's reports back in the early 1900s of this. He described giants and sarcophagus and all these type of things that we're finding.
Yeah.
And earlier, like you said, the funerary jars in Mexico, and kind of scratched your head. I was like, well, think about
Well,
this.
I'm surprised. That's for sure.
but like King Pakal, he was mummified.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
so and there's pyramids all over Mexico. So this pyramid building civilization may have been where that all came from, and it seems global.
Mm-hmm.
And we now know with Caral Supe is one of the megalithic cities in Peru.
Okay.
And
Corral, yes.
And a big chunk of one of the pyramids broke off, like one of the feet of the pyramids broke off, and they found this webbing, this netting material underneath, and they were able to carbon date it.
Yep.
And apparently, these all these megalithic cities and the Incan road were constructed 5,000 years ago,
At least, yeah.
predating the Inca by a couple of thousand years.
Yep.
Well, more than that, yeah.
Well, all right, 2,500 years. So, proving that there was a advanced pyramid building culture in Bolivia and South America in general that we know zip about. We don't know anything about these people at all. I mean, there's a few local
we actually
legends,
do,
but
because of these pieces, But yeah, that's clearly something that's being kept from us. Like the research on this, the amount of pushback. Someone like Robert Schoch's research, where they ground penetrating radar underneath the Sphinx feet, but have never been able to dig. Like so many of these things, even just how they dig in these places, it's limited to primitive tools. They don't allow modern machines. Like, I always wondered that in Egypt. Like, why don't they allow some excavators to come in and let's get to the bottom of this next
the better
week.
to step in your way.
It really gets down to even the big cover up with giants. You talk to Hugh Newman and his books. I mean, all the stuff that we are not being allowed to actually understand our true heritage, and there must be a reason. There's obviously a very strong faction of people or whatever, that are basically saying you don't need to know this, or we're not going to let you know this.
And what is the big deal with giants? So what? There used to be giants. They're in the Bible. What's the big deal?
They're in all the ancient texts.
Who cares? Why go to such trouble to steal these skeletons whenever they're discovered? And not just from the U.S. This is happening in Malta and Sardinia and Italy and England.
Great Britain.
Everywhere that they've found them. I mean, Mexico as well, the choppiest region there has tons of giants and tales of this type of stuff, legends and whatnot. But yeah, it's all connected to the fallen angels and the rebellion against God and all of this stuff that they're trying to bury. They killed the Savior and did all this stuff probably for a reason. There's these genocides that have occurred within these religions, and it seems like a lot of these religions have been hijacked and are utilized to control us rather than give us the freedom of religion like it promises. And I think that's something that's really a twisted, long battle, but with the Crusades and all the things, the Cathar people went through 9 popes and have been completely removed. And the reason the Cathar people were removed, not because that they were pagans, they believed in the Savior and they believed in the New Testament. However, they believed it in the Old Testament, that in the Bible, that there was 2 gods, one that was evil and one that was good. And I think that's the big highlighted thing that they...
Yeah, that'll be the divergent point there from the main Christianity. But even the Bible talks about gods sometimes
and
in
giants.
The plural form,
Yeah, and Lord in the Bible, L-O-R-D in all caps, is actually a translation of Elohim. And Elohim could have been these group of archons or angels that were, doing this type of divine work and construction and stuff within the solar systems,
And the Bible also talks about the Nephilim too, the Nephilim and the Watchers and you get that all through the Vedas, and you get into Zoroastrianism, and it's just it's all throughout the ancient texts.
And we get a lot of Bible stories that have earlier versions in Sumerian texts, and one of them is the expulsion of Adam and Eve from Eden.
Yeah.
And did I lose you there, Mike? No, there he is.
No, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. Our screen went black for a second.
Oh.
But what was I saying? Oh yes, the expulsion
Eden,
of Adam
the
and
area
Eve
of
from Eden. Eden was a region in Mesopotamia. They spelled it Edin, and it was under the control of Enlil.
Yep.
And Enlil, according to the tablets, at one point Enlil asked Enki for some of his Homo sapien workers. He wanted some of them for his gardens and for, to use as workers in Mesopotamia. But apparently Enki was jealously guarding them and was not going to let him have them.
Right.
And there's a story in the ancient Sumerian texts where Enlil crashed a spaceship or one of his ships into the mines, broke into the mines, and scooped up a bunch of his workers and stole them and took them back to Mesopotamia so that he could have them working in his province called Eden. And the expulsion in the Bible, we're talking about Adam and Eve being expelled because they partook of this apple, the apple of knowledge, right? The tree of knowledge. In the Bible, though, knowledge, the word knowledge, usually means the sexual knowing of a woman. To have knowledge of a woman is to know her sexually, right? So they think in the Sumerian version, it's not that they ate an apple. It's that they were having carnal knowledge of other Anunnaki, mating with human women.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Enlil found this to be such a blasphemous activity that he, in a rage, he expelled all of his human workers out of his province of Eden. And this, of course, makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get furious because somebody ate an apple. You would be furious because they're screwing somebody they're not supposed to be screwing and, producing these Nephilim as the progeny, supposedly. These giant, obnoxious giants are supposed to be what the Nephilim are, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them. I think there's a full hybridization of different things that they were experimenting on and trying to create super species and this type of stuff that still even is rumored to go on today within our governments. And I think, a lot of the technology that the Anunnaki are said to give to man throughout the years. We have the Golden Emperor in China. There's all these different places where technology is given by the gods, language, all these things given by the gods all over the world. And I think there's definitely a sign of this, experimentation and what came to be dominant. But how we inherited this place, I think, Adam and Eve's fall really has a lot to do with also the killing of Abzu. We have Tiamat and Abzu, and when Abzu was killed, in some of the texts it says that it's Enki that kills Abzu, and in some of the texts it's not. And this death, I think, has a lot to do with the tablets of destiny and how the tablets even came to be. And this is where the initial cover up or the initial lies begin of disclosure and the forbidden knowledge and the forbidden information that allows them to create the false trinity. I think that they took Abzu's soul and embed them into these tablets, and that might even be what's contained in the Ark of the Covenant and within the biblical stories. It's the Word of God on there, but when you look at the translations and what Word of God is in Gnostic, especially, it's a much different thing. The power here could be that why it radiates and all this stuff could be because it's actually a trapped God inside of this box,
Yeah, could be. Well, you know what, folks, we are at the 1 hour and 5 minute mark and 6 minute mark. we want Michael, we want to make sure that we give you time to be able to promote yourself.
Yeah, what's coming up and what are you doing next and what's coming out?
Yeah, the newest thing I released is my new book. I've got a book of 2025's work that we did, all the different discoveries, the large sarcophagus, everything is detailed in there.
Oh my gosh. Look at that.
Really high. There's over 10 discoveries that came out last year. So we've been busy with that. But then we've also taken a lot of these objects and we've scanned them in 3D. We're taking and building a virtual museum. You know, you've seen these VR headsets that people are wearing, these big clunky things. Well,
Yeah.
this technology is really something else. And I found it to be really favorable for this type of display. And so I bought a VR 180 camera that's 8K for both eyes. You can see everything all around you, and so we're creating a museum this way. You'll be able to explore it and view it on these platforms. Which eventually, I think there'll be sunglasses that have it and stuff like that. So that's my intent. Is that
you won't have to wear those big clunky things sooner or later? Yeah,
I'm hoping. Yeah, because that's not fun.
So what again is your book called? And it's like
it's Alien Carvings Discoveries.
Okay.
And
okay, great.
Super.
Would you recommend the hardback cover, right? Because it's not softback.
It's only in hardcover on that one. I do have like Forbidden Relics in softcover, but the difference in price on Amazon, I'd rather just see them in hardcover. Like this knowledge needs to be protected for years.
Yeah.
It's something I document. I know right now I'm not going to probably change the world's opinion on this topic, but the documentation and being thorough with it 20, 30 years from now, when people get the technology, or even 5 years at this rate that we're going, we may have like SAR radar that allows us to see things differently and give this the credibility it needs. And then we can go back and be like, oh, wow, there's all this data that was recorded at least. So
will you be at Contact in the Desert?
I will. Yes. I'm already booked.
See you there then.
Bringing my entire family this time. So I'm really excited. My son's going to be there, and I'll be sharing a booth with Arcturus Ra and having some of my books there. And yeah, it should be really fun.
Wonderful. We'll get to see you again, and we'll get your book then.
Yes, we do.
I'll bring you
and
one
you
for
can
sure.
sign it for us in person and everything.
Of course.
We'll give you our new one too.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll show you our most recent edition.
We should have it in Spanish by that time too.
Here's hoping.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you could take it down to Tula and share it with those guys down there.
At this point, not going to go back down to Mexico anytime soon, I don't think. With all the stuff that's going on, they lit the entire Sacred Mountain on fire yesterday after this whole cartel guy was shot. There's real fear here that this is much deeper, and that this them getting rid of the cartels is more than just fentanyl. We went into Iraq for a reason that some people believe was more than just oil. And I feel that could have been, they bombed so many archaeological sites over there. Same with Syria.
Yes. Yep.
And guess
On
what?
purpose.
Those places, they have the same type of connection to this type of stuff that we're finding.
It's horrible. It's horrifying.
And there's like these men in black looking people that are professing to be like with an ISIS religious sect. But they're dressed like in suits with comm units in their ears and
war fatigue.
And they're going around busting up ancient Sumerian artifacts on purpose,
On purpose.
And I think this is part of this cover up,
Yeah, disclosure.
We're such a silly race.
Disclosure is not to tell us the truth. It's to keep it from us. And everybody that's involved almost in it. I mean, I'm not saying you guys or myself here, but there's a lot of paid actors who are getting a lot of money to keep this narrative on a very sealed topic. That's why it's never on the news. Even if all these pieces were fake, they would still report that on the news and be like, yeah, this stuff's not real. But instead, they're all silent. None of them at all.
They're not even squeaking about it.
Yeah, it's really scary. It really is, to know how deep that might go.
I know. I keep waiting for the men in black to kick in our door,
Step on one too many toes,
At least you'll know for sure then, right?
Yeah, we'll know for sure that we were close. We hit a nerve, with our book.
we end our book with saying that if you all of a sudden find us recanting our stories, it's most likely because we have a gun in our head.
Yeah. And if we disappear, be suspicious. That's how we end our book.
Yeah.
So is that all that you have coming up, my dear?
Yeah, as far as that I can talk about right now, there's some other projects in works with a few other people, but Yeah, those are the important things. I'll be writing Forbidden Relics Volume 2 probably this fall. I've got to go. There's a few other collectors that have large collections in the thousands of pieces, and I'm going to go photograph and scan in 3D those collections as well, so we can have more volumes of Forbidden Relics. And also it'll make the museum, thousands. Like we'll probably get close to 5,000 items in the museum by the time we're done. So
it's great that you have the resources
wonderful.
to be able to really do the real scientific research and data, because it basically validates what your skepticism was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it really helps to validate for the world too, that, this stuff is real. Okay.
Yeah.
And, maybe Sitchin wasn't a crackpot,
He was probably canceled because of the same reason that this topic, is danced around. They cancel culture, anything that goes against what they want to be told. And that seems to be very true.
I think it was the particular thing with Sitchin was that he was fighting with the British Natural History Museum for decades, trying to get them to carbon date Queen Puabi. She's a first dynasty Sumerian queen mummy that was discovered in Ur. And she has a very misshapen head. And Sitchin was convinced that she was more Anunnaki than the average human. And so he fought with the British Museum for years trying to get him, and they just categorically refused. And it's the same two guys that he was battling against
Smith
that are the ones, the ones coming out with most of this.
They're saying, he didn't submit enough theses, or he didn't put these papers in at the right time. And they're just bullshit.
And they're just bad mouthing him now that he can't defend himself anymore. But he's got one defender here.
I'm here too.
And one you. There, yeah. And you.
Yep.
And maybe some of our listeners. Here's hoping.
The truth will float. None of these people are going to be perfect, including myself. Like I can only theorize what I can theorize, but at the same point, there's definitely something here between all of this, and not all of these people are crazy. That's for sure. I would put everything I own on this, that there's absolutely a real truth to all these conspiracies. Just like in the religions, there's a truth in every religion, but there's also probably corruption too.
Sounds like you're putting your money where your mouth is.
Yep.
Trying. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming back on again, my dear. And
thanks for having me.
We'll call it a night, but stay with us for just a few minutes after we stop recording.
Will do.
Okay.
All right. Just a second. Good night, everyone. And thank you for tuning in.
Great show.
And we'll be back next week.
Peace and prosperity. Leslie, you're kidding me.
What?
Our merchandise store is up?
Of course, my darling. All of our amazing concepts of shirts, mugs, and bumper stickers are ready to go.
No way.
Way.
Even my brilliant Egyptian concept that no one else ever thought of before?
Yes, that one too, and lots more. All at our new store at etsy.com/shop/abductions101.
Wow. I want a shirt and a mug and...
Well, Stephen, and all our curious listeners, just go to etsy.com/shop/abductions101 to see all of our unique designs.
I'm going there.